On the eve of my grand wedding to the crown prince, I inadvertently stumbled upon his clandestine affair with my half-sister. He vowed that he would surely take her into the Eastern Palace, declaring, "You are already with child, my flesh and blood. This is my firstborn, Zhiyao. I shall ensure that our offspring inherits the imperial legacy. You are the one I desire to wed as my crown princess. I shall protect you and elevate you to the most esteemed woman of the Eastern Palace." The crown prince orchestrated my fall into the water, arranging for an outsider to rescue me. Once we share a moment of intimacy, I shall no longer be fit to be the crown princess, which conveniently allows him to propose a marriage exchange with the empress. What a cunning scheme. If that is the case, I shall facilitate their desires. Just before plunging into the water, I deliberately collided with General Qinmu, the defender of the nation, entangling my garments in his armor as we both fell into the lake. After being rescued by the valiant general, I knelt before the empress, weeping in a manner that tugged at the heartstrings. This humble daughter has shared intimacy with the general and is unworthy to remain as the crown princess. I beseech your majesty to annul the betrothal between myself and the crown prince. The crown prince and my half-sister, Zhiyao, were closely intertwined, oblivious to the fact that I listened intently from behind the rockery. Xiao Chen's voice bore a hint of sorrow as he confessed, "My heart has always belonged to you. Had it not been for my mother's disapproval, I would never have sought to marry your elder sister. She, a lady of such noble lineage, is but a mold of societal expectations, unlike you, Zhiyao, who embodies grace and understanding." My half-sister leaned against him, her words dripping with reliance and affection. "Your Highness, with such care for me and the child within, I fear no hardship. Even if it meant becoming a mere maid sweeping the corridors of the Eastern Palace, I would gladly accept." Xiao Chen tightened his embrace, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Rest assured, I shall protect you and elevate you to the most esteemed position within the Eastern Palace." I gritted my teeth behind the rockery, recalling my father's words that the crown prince, Xiao Chen, was not a suitable match. The empress had orchestrated my betrothal to solidify his position, binding our family closely to the crown prince's ambitions. After our engagement, leveraging the influence of the Grand Tutor's household, the crown prince had garnered support from numerous literati to bolster his status in the Eastern Palace. Little did I know, he harbored no gratitude and had entangled himself with my half-sister before our wedding. If word of this were to spread, it would be a severe disgrace to the Cui family. Moreover, his wicked scheme to ensure my half-sister ascended as crown princess came at my expense. In this world, a woman's virtue holds immeasurable significance. Despite our acquaintance, he so casually dictated my fate. With these thoughts swirling in my mind, I quietly retreated to the lakeside. "Miss, how could the crown prince be so cruel?" "We should inform the master," the maid, Bai Zhu, said indignantly. I replied calmly, "Do not fret. Your mistress has her own means. If the crown prince and my half-sister are truly in love, I shall grant them their wishes, lest their affections go unreciprocated." As the empress hosted a flower-viewing banquet, noble ladies strolled by the lakeside, accompanied by numerous scions of prominent families. As I emerged from the rockery, I noticed a man standing by the lake, and I paused momentarily. It was General Qinmu, renowned for his valor and military prowess. He had achieved great feats at a young age. The crown prince had made several attempts to entice Qinmu into his fold, yet the general remained steadfastly neutral. I observed figures lurking in the shadows. The illegitimate son of the Duke of Pingyang, accompanied by a servant, could only see me from their vantage point, oblivious to Qinmu's presence. A slight smile graced my lips as I began to walk toward Qinmu, but before I could reach him, I was knocked down by a servant rushing from behind. I let out a startled cry as I fell toward Qinmu, my garments snagging on his armor. Caught off guard, he stumbled, and we tumbled into the lake together. Bai Zhu shrieked, "Someone help! Our mistress has fallen into the lake." Her cry alarmed everyone nearby, including the crown prince and my half-sister hidden behind the rockery. Before the palace guards could arrive, Qinmu had already pulled me to the shore.
"Bizo!"
Seizing the moment before others arrived, wrapped me tightly in her cloak. Zhiyao stood beside the crown prince, astonished at my drenched appearance. "Sister, how did you fall into the lake, especially alongside a man? What shall we do?" She pointed at the dazed Lier, thinking he had rescued me. "Now everyone has witnessed him carrying you ashore. Your reputation is ruined. How can you marry the crown prince now? She then turned her gaze to the crown prince. Your Highness, surely my sister must have stumbled accidentally. She must be frightened. Otherwise, why would she cling so tightly to a man? Upon hearing her words and gazing at my soaked form, the crown prince's face darkened with fury. Ji Yu, how could you be so careless as to fall into the lake with a man? You are to be the crown princess. How can you lose your virtue and still be my wife? The empress arrived just in time to hear this and reprimanded, be quiet. The noble ladies, having overheard my half-sister's comments, began to murmur. Heavens, Cui Ji was rescued by a man. What shall become of her? Indeed, with the wedding imminent. She is to be the crown princess, yet she is seen in such a compromising position. How can she face anyone? If the crown prince refuses to marry her, and she has been with another man, does that not ruin her for life? The crowd had not seen who had saved me, but with Ji Yao's words, they all assumed it was Li Er who had rescued me. Pale-faced, I knelt before the empress, my expression resolute. Your Majesty, I accidentally fell into the water, and thankfully, a kind soul rescued me. I acknowledge that I have lost my virtue, and thus I am unworthy to remain the crown princess. I beseech your Majesty to annul my engagement to the crown prince. The empress was at a loss for words. Realizing my recent emergence from the water had indeed compromised my honor, she furrowed her brow, visibly troubled. The crown prince interjected, Mother, the crown princess is to be the future matriarch of the palace. Her reputation must remain untarnished. Miss Cui is well-versed in propriety and would not wish to tarnish the Eastern Palace's reputation. Perhaps it would be best to honor her request and dissolve the engagement. He continued, having been frightened, Your Majesty might consider bestowing her with some gifts as consolation. This way, others will only speak of your benevolence and not the scandal surrounding Miss Cui. Each of his words insinuated my loss of virtue. The empress, appearing helpless, responded, Ji Yu, you know how fearsome public opinion can be. It is commendable that you understand decorum. Very well, the engagement between the crown prince and the Cui family shall be annulled, and we shall seek another crown princess. I deeply bowed. Thank you for your grace, your Majesty. As I knelt, a smile tugged at the corners of my lips. Regardless of what others might say, I had finally freed myself from the crown prince's engagement. Henceforth, I would be unshackled, able to wander the vast world I yearned to explore. My lips had barely curved into a smile when Xiao Chen spoke again, Mother. Since Li Er has saved Ji Yao's life and has shared a bond with her, perhaps we should grant him the honor of marrying Miss Cui, thus fulfilling a fateful union. I firmly rejected this. Your Highness, I shall not marry Li Er. My half-sister urged gently, Sister, your virtue is already compromised. Marrying Li Er would be the best outcome for you. You must not be stubborn, for who would dare wed a woman who has been seen by another man? I raised my eyes to her. Who says the one who saved me was Li Er? By the time you arrived with the crown prince, I had already been rescued. You did not witness who saved me, yet insist it was Li Er. Why is that? I continued, or do you already know I would fall into the lake, and that Li Er would dive in to save me? As my words hung in the air, the gazes of those present shifted toward Ji Yao and the crown prince, suspicion evident in their eyes. Indeed, we arrived before Miss Cui, yet we did not see anything. How can she be so certain it was Li Er who saved her? It dawned on them. Could it be that she had a hand in this? Such speculation was dangerous. The rivalry between legitimate and illegitimate children was well known, and Ji Yao was certainly not a naive player in this game. Xiao Chen's face turned ashen. Nonsense. Ji Yao is merely concerned about you. When we arrived, it was Li Er Gongzi standing beside you. What more can you say? I let out a cold laugh, rising to confront Gongzi Li. Pray tell, Gongzi Li, were you the one who rescued me? Gongzi Li stammered. Yes, it was indeed I who saved the young lady. Bai Zhu spat. What a grandiose claim. Gongzi Li, my lady was not saved by you at all. You claim to have jumped into the water, yet your clothes remain dry. Tell me, how did you rescue the young lady? Do you possess some sort of divine ability that allows you to emerge unscathed from the water? In truth, the onlookers were not entirely oblivious to the peculiarities of the situation. They simply did not wish to offend the crown prince. Gongzi Li, impeccably dressed and utterly dry, could not possibly be her savior. Are you so brazen as to lie before Her Majesty the Queen? I barked. Ji Yao stepped forward. Sister. Perhaps Gongzi Li took the opportunity to change his attire. I understand your heartache at losing the title of crown princess, but we must not treat our benefactor in such a manner. No one else is present. If you claim someone else saved you, where are they?
Basidas Gongzi Li.
Who else could it be? As the legitimate daughter of the Cui family, how can you utter such unfounded words? If father hears, you shall be punished to kneel before the ancestral hall. I regarded her coldly. You scheme against your own sister and spread rumors. Return to the Cui residence and accept your punishment. Truly, you have been raised by a concubine. Is your mind filled with straw? Shao Chen shielded her. Now, aside from Gongzi Li, no one else will marry you. I shall have mother arrange a marriage for you, salvaging some semblance of dignity. How long do you intend to act willfully? You must understand, you shall never become the crown princess. If it was not Gongzi Li who saved you, then who was it? It was I who rescued her. Qin Mu emerged from the crowd, accompanied by a physician, still drenched from the water. The general of the protectorate? It was General Qin who saved Miss Cui? Gongzi Li truly had no shame, daring to impersonate her savior. Gongzi Li's face flushed with embarrassment as he retreated repeatedly. Qin Mu knelt beside me. Your Majesty, it was my lack of foresight that led to Miss Cui's disgrace. I beseech your Majesty to bless a union between me and Miss Cui. Qin Mu's arrival turned the tide, and the gazes cast upon me were now filled with envy. The general of the protectorate was a favored figure before the emperor, renowned for his military exploits, and he maintained a reputation of integrity, having no concubines in his residence. Ever since his return to the capital, matchmakers had been flocking to his door, yet he had shown no interest in any of them.
Now,
due to our shared misadventure in the water, he sought the queen's approval for marriage. Just as I had lost my engagement with the crown prince, here was the general of the protectorate seeking to marry me. The noble women's eyes glimmered with envy. Given the circumstances, and with the general personally requesting marriage, the queen had no choice but to nod. Very well, I shall grant your union and choose an auspicious date for your wedding. Qin Mu helped me to my feet. Miss Cui, I apologize. It was not my intention to leave you alone by the lake. Autumn has arrived, and I feared you might catch a chill, so I went to fetch a physician for your pulse. The physician behind him chuckled. I can attest that when the general pulled me along, he was in quite a hurry, nearly pulling my old bones apart. I smiled and nodded. I am grateful for the life-saving grace of the general. My gaze shifted to see Gongzi Li attempting to flee, and I quickly called out to him. Gongzi Li, I wish to inquire who instructed you to impersonate my savior? When I fell into the water, it was not an accident. Someone pushed me from behind. Had it not been for the general's rescue, I can only imagine that I would be engaged to you now.
Gongzi Li.
After all, as a woman rejected by the crown prince, saved by a stranger, I would have no choice but to marry you, wouldn't you agree? Qin Mu glared at Gongzi Li, bellowing. Speak the truth. Gongzi Li fell to his knees with a thud, trembling. General, Miss Cui, I truly did not intend for this to happen. I was left with no choice. He looked up at the crown prince, pleading, Your Highness, save me. Shao Chen waved his sleeve dismissively. What does this have to do with me? Ji Yao, with a glint in her eye, remarked, Gongzi Li has always favored my elder sister. Could it be that he acted out of a moment of folly? I stepped forward and delivered a sharp slap. Interrupting her, Cui Ji Yao, this slap serves as a warning from your elder sister to be cautious with your words, lest you invite calamity upon yourself. I know this matter involves you. Though I lack solid proof, your earlier certainty in claiming it was Gongzi Li who saved me implicates you. Shao Chen shoved me aside and embraced Ji Yao, his voice laced with fury. Cui Jiyu, how dare you push the crown princess? A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Crown princess? Surely not. The crown prince intends to choose Cui Ji Yao? She is merely a concubine's daughter. The queen's face turned ashen. Crown prince, what nonsense are you spouting? Shao Chen gritted his teeth, kneeling before the queen with his half-sister. Mother, my heart belongs to Ji Yao. I beseech you to grant your blessing. The queen, piecing together the events of the day, pointed at Shao Chen. You would forsake the legitimate daughter of the Cui family for an unknown concubine's daughter? Have you lost your senses? As the heir to the throne, how can you act upon your whims? If your father knew, he would be deeply disappointed. You have just dissolved your betrothal to the eldest daughter of the Cui family. I will not consent to your marriage with a concubine's daughter, for that would be a disgrace to the royal family. If you persist, I will have this calamity of a woman dealt with. Ji Yao, pale and trembling, fainted in the crown prince's arms. I screamed, "Quick! Someone summon a physician for my sister. She must not come to harm. Lately, she has appeared pale and has been complaining of dizziness. Could it be that she suffers from an illness beyond cure?" The physician approached to examine her pulse, suddenly changing color. "Miss Chue is with child." I cover my mouth, retreating step by step. No, it cannot be. How could she possibly be with child? Who is the father of this illegitimate child? The crown prince leaped to his feet. "How dare you speak so boldly? The child within Ji Yao is of royal blood." At that moment, everyone fell into a stunned silence. Only I could not help but chuckle inwardly. How delightful it was that their scandal had been revealed by their own mouths. The queen, pale with rage, exclaimed, "Heir, you are the crown prince. You are not yet wed. How could you engage in such folly? Until today, your betrothed was still Cui Jiyu. How dare you entangle yourself with her half-sister?" I glared at Xiao Chen, my eyes brimming with anger. So that is it. I wondered how it was that someone would suddenly push me into the lake to ruin my reputation. It turns out it was your highness's scheme to court Ji Yao. If you had affection for my sister, why not declare it openly? Why must you sacrifice my reputation for your own benefit? Ji Yao is unwed. Yet you have pledged your hearts to one another, leaving me to bear the consequences. Ji Yao stirred awake, and upon hearing this, cried out, "Sister, I beg for your forgiveness. I had no choice. Father has always favored you, and Mother's heart has only ever belonged to you. It is all because you are the legitimate daughter, and I am but a concubine's child. It was I who orchestrated your fall into the water. Do not blame the crown prince, but rather blame Ji Yao. He did it all for me. From childhood to adulthood, I have never dared to contest with my sister. Yet this time, dear sister, I truly harbor feelings for His Highness the Crown Prince. I wish to claim this moment for myself. Whether as the Crown Princess or a secondary consort, I, Ji Yao, do not mind. I can forego my title. All I desire is to be together with His Highness. Even if His Highness cannot marry me, having learned of his affection for me is enough to satisfy my heart. I would be content to leave with a child and never return." Xiao Chen embraced her tightly, exclaiming, "Fool, I will not allow you to leave." The two of them put on a heart-wrenching performance before the onlookers. Qin Mu sneered from the side, saying, "Your Highness, regardless of the private matters between you and Miss Cui, you cannot evade responsibility for the incident that caused my betrothed to fall into the water. She is the woman you are betrothed to. You know full well that if she is rescued by another man, the rumors will ruin her. The honor of a woman is of utmost importance. Are you trying to drive her to her demise? If you cannot provide an explanation for Miss Cui, I will take this matter to His Majesty and seek a fair judgment." His Highness's face darkened as he glared fiercely at Qin Mu, who stood unfazed. Meeting his gaze directly, "What does your Highness think?" the Empress commanded sharply. "Chiner, apologize to Miss Cui." Xiao Chun gritted his teeth and lowered his head. "Jiyu, I was wrong. I am sorry." "Very well. If you truly wish to marry into the Eastern Palace, I shall grant you the position of secondary consort. And I will not hold your intimacy with Qin Mu against you. Will that suffice?" I recoiled in disgust, stepping back. "No need. The Empress has already arranged a marriage for me with General Qin. You need not worry, Your Highness. I am unwell from falling into the water, and shall take my leave." With that, I turned away, accompanied by my maid, leaving the palace without a backward glance. Upon returning home, my parents were already aware of the events that transpired in the palace, their faces dark with anger. My mother shattered a teacup in rage, exclaiming, "What a shameless wretch! How dare she usurp her elder sister's marriage, knowing full well that the wedding is only a month away? Cui Ji Yao has scandalously entangled herself with the crown prince. Someone, bind Aunt Zhao and take her to the ancestral hall. The second miss is a disgrace. Having been raised to be so shameless under her influence, how can the sisters of the Cui family find suitors or show their faces in public now?" My mother wept bitterly, embracing me. "My poor Yuer, how have you encountered such heartless people?" I dismissed all the servants and quietly revealed to my parents what had transpired today. I overheard the crown prince and Ji Yao's words. I intentionally fell into the water to disengage from the engagement. It merely happened that the general was by the lake, which inadvertently involved him. My mother gasped in horror. Child, if the general had not been by the lake, how would you have escaped? I smiled. Mother, have you forgotten? I lived for several years at my maternal grandfather's home in the south. I am quite adept at swimming. Even if that Air Gonzi wished to rescue me, I would have swum away long before he arrived. However, the crown prince clearly intended to manipulate my father. Thus, I seized the opportunity to nullify the engagement and sever ties with the crown prince's faction. My father pondered. The crown prince is incompetent. How can he secure the Eastern Palace? Our Chui family cannot be bound to him, especially since the emperor has grown increasingly dissatisfied with him. I rose to my feet. The crown prince and Ji Yao are already closely intertwined. Their union is practically a foregone conclusion unless... My father and I exchanged a knowing glance. Speaking in unison, unless Cui Ji Yao is no longer a member of the Cui family. That night, under the crown prince's escort, Cui Ji Yao returned home. He gently assisted her through the door, but as soon as they crossed the threshold, my father bellowed, Cui Ji Yao, kneel. Xiao Chen was taken aback and quickly interjected, Cui Darren, Ji Yao is with child and cannot kneel. My father looked at the crown prince, inquiring, has the emperor bestowed a decree for your marriage? The crown prince averted his gaze. Knowing the emperor and empress were furious, it was impossible for them to grant him permission to marry Cui Ji Yao. My father continued, since the crown prince lacks a royal decree, Ji Yao remains my daughter. I must now deal with family matters, and I ask the crown prince to refrain from interfering. Cui Ji Yao, do you understand your mistakes? With reddened eyes, Ji Yao timidly replied, Father, I know I was wrong. For the sake of the crown prince, I beg you to forgive me this once. My father, stern-faced, said, Forgive you? Do you understand how many family rules you have broken? First, you are aware of the crown prince's engagement to your elder sister, and yet you entangle yourself with him despite the imminent wedding. Second, as a noblewoman, you have been carefully raised, yet you commit the disgrace of losing your virtue before marriage. Third, you resort to underhanded means to achieve your goals, even attempting to ensnare your own sister, tarnishing her reputation, and pushing her towards a scoundrel. Each of these offenses alone is enough to bring shame upon our family. I have resolved to send you to the ancestral home, where you shall remain in the family temple to atone for your sins. Ji Yao, crying, crawled forward, Please, father. I am your own daughter. What is wrong with wanting a good marriage? I love the crown prince, and he loves me.
Xiao Chen stepped forward, Cui Darren.
Ji Yao is my woman, carrying my child. How dare you? My father stood tall, staring at the crown prince. As long as Cui Ji Yao is my daughter, she will be subject to my authority. If I were to end her life with a cup of poison to preserve my family's honor, that would be my decision. Xiao Chen's expression hardened. What if Ji Yao is no longer a member of the Cui family? My father replied coldly, Unless she voluntarily renounces her place in the family tree, she remains under my control. For the sake of the Cui family's reputation, she must terminate the pregnancy and seek penance in the family temple. At that moment, Aunt Zhao rushed in, having escaped from the watchful servants. Her hair disheveled as she fell at the crown prince's feet. Your Highness, save Ji Yao. Take her away. My lord will surely kill her to protect the eldest miss. She then collapsed into a heap, sobbing beside Ji Yao. Ji Yao gritted her teeth and looked up at her father. If you cannot accept me, I will renounce my place in the family and no longer be a member of the Cui family. She then turned to the crown prince. Your Highness, you will treat Ji Yao well in the future, won't you? The crown prince helped her to her feet. Rest assured, I shall not let you down. My father shouted. Cui Ji Yao, have you thought this through? The emperor and empress have not given their consent. If you leave with him today, you will have no name or status. Would you rather betray your family than stay? Ji Yao lifted her chin, her eyes filled with determination. Yes, even without a name or status, I will follow His Highness. I believe he will provide me with a legitimate standing. My father slammed his hand on the table. Very well. I will summon the clan elders tomorrow to expel you from the family. From this day forth, you shall no longer be a member of the Cui family. The following morning, my father gathered the clan elders and convened the family assembly, officially removing Cui Ji Yao from the Cui family lineage. Meanwhile, the crown prince had arranged for a carriage to wait outside, and Ji Yao, carrying a small bundle, left with him. This news quickly spread throughout the capital. The empress, infuriated, smashed a teacup. Has the crown prince lost his mind? For the sake of a mere illegitimate daughter, He has orchestrated the downfall of the esteemed Cui family's legitimate daughter. Now that the tutor has cast out Cui Zhiyao, he remains oblivious to the gravity of the situation and dares to bring her into the Eastern Palace. With gritted teeth, she ordered, "Send word to proclaim that Cui Zhiyao shall be designated as a concubine, granting her the lowest rank in the Eastern Palace. Let us see what further chaos she can conjure. A mere offspring? Does the Eastern Palace lack for children?" I soon received the imperial decree for my marriage to the general, and in an instant, I became the most sought-after noblewoman in the capital, with ladies and matrons flocking to pay their respects. In a bid to formalize their union, Qinmu approached the Duke of Dingwa and his wife as elders to negotiate the betrothal. Among the gifts presented was a pair of live geese he had personally hunted, which greatly honored me. The two families enjoyed a harmonious conversation, swiftly setting the wedding date for 3 months hence. During the banquet following the engagement, the noble ladies engaged in discussions about the bustling happenings in the capital. Miss Lu's third daughter inquired, "Are you all aware of the events that transpired in the Eastern Palace yesterday? It was quite the spectacle, truly lively." One of the ladies, curious due to Miss Lu's familial connection to a palace concubine, pressed for details. "What spectacle?" Miss Lu, wide-eyed, replied, "You mean to say you are unaware? His Royal Highness had previously been married. It turned out that the prince, wishing to demonstrate his affection for Cui Zhiyao, had taken her to the most opulent shops in the capital to purchase jewelry. However, on their return to the palace, a woman blocked the path of his carriage, her eyes brimming with tears as she pleaded, "Xiaoling, it was difficult for me to find you." The crowd, taken aback, gasped at the audacity of addressing the prince in such a manner. Upon recognizing the woman, the prince was visibly shocked and dismounted to assist her. "Yunyang, what brings you here?" The woman, named Yunyang, cradled a 2-year-old child in her arms. "I had not intended to come, but after your departure from Jiangnan, I discovered I was with child. After giving birth to Rue Go, he has been unwell, and only now, at 2 years old, can he call for someone. Unable to bear that he lacks a father's love and without funds for his treatment, I had no choice but to come to the capital in search of my husband, only to find out that you are the crown prince." The child, upon seeing the prince, rushed forward, crying, "Father!" Cui Zhiyao, stepping down from the carriage, scolded, "Your Highness, who are they to call you father?" The prince, stammering, found himself at a loss for words. Yunyang then fell to her knees before Zhiyao. "Noble lady, I once wed the prince in a ceremony. Today I have learned that he is the crown prince. I do not dare to seek the position of the principal wife. I merely wish to serve by his side. For the sake of the child, I implore you to grant us a place to stay."
Xiao schrikt, impossible.
"Who knows if this child is a bastard? The heir to the throne is the one in my womb. Guards, take this woman and her child away." The prince interjected, protecting Yunyang, "Do not be disrespectful. They are my wife and child. Years ago, I ventured to Jiangnan, where I was captivated by Yunyang's musical talent, and I did indeed promise her a lifetime together, and we were wed. Now, she seeks only a name. Is that too much to ask? Rue Go bears a striking resemblance to me. He is undoubtedly my flesh and blood. You must not treat them with contempt." Zhiyao, disregarding the public spectacle, shouted, "Xiao Chun, I am your wife. What did you promise me back then? You said I would become the crown princess and our child the future heir. And now, behind my back, you have taken a wife and had a son. If you bring them into the Eastern Palace, I will take our child and die before you." With that, she lunged at the prince. In a fit of anger, the prince struck her across the face, sending her sprawling to the ground. "You are outrageous. I am the crown prince, and you are but a mere courtesan. How dare you question me? It seems my kindness has led you to overstep your bounds." He commanded, "Take Cui Zhiyao back to the Eastern Palace and confine her. She is not permitted to leave without my orders." The guard stepped forward to drag Zhiyao away, while the prince took Rue Go and Yunyang and returned to the Eastern Palace. In the ensuing days, I was preoccupied with wedding arrangements and had not paid heed to these events, only to discover they had spread throughout the capital. Once the guests had departed, Qinmu lingered to speak with me, expressing, "The crown prince and Cui Zhiyao dared to conspire against you. I have avenged you." Noticing his smug demeanor, I recalled Miss Lu's earlier remarks and asked, "Was it you who arranged for that woman to confront the prince in public?" Qinmu replied with a cold chuckle, I merely had someone investigate the prince's affairs and uncovered that he had indeed wed another in Jiangnan and fathered a child. I informed that woman of the situation, and by coincidence, a merchant caravan was headed to the capital, bringing them here sooner than expected. I couldn't help but laugh, realizing that the Eastern Palace would soon be rife with commotion. Qin Mu joined in my mirth. He has consistently made blunders in handling court affairs, and his domestic life is a chaotic mess, with no legitimate wife but an abundance of disorderly women. Moreover, I hear that Prince Jin is returning to the capital shortly. He has just married Princess Qinghui, daughter of the Duke of Ruyang, and is currently in the prime of his popularity, posing a formidable challenge to the crown prince. If things continue as they are, his position as crown prince may be far from secure. You are my wife, and I shall protect you. From this day forth, you need not concern yourself with anything. Simply enjoy the spectacle. We exchanged knowing smiles, foreseeing that the Eastern Palace would no longer know tranquility. Indeed, news of the crown prince's secret marriage to a commoner and the existence of his child quickly circulated through the inner palace, inciting the emperor's wrath upon learning of the scandal. The empress knelt in supplication for an entire day, yet the emperor remained unmoved. Angrily scattering a pile of memorials, a mother's indulgence breeds a wayward son. Look at what he has become. For the sake of a lowly woman, he has conspired to displace the crown princess and annulled the betrothal. Now he is exposed for marrying in secret.
Affilial sang.
Tell me, do you have any sense of shame left? Do you not remember your mother and me? The prince, struck by the emperor's fury, bled from his brow and quietly replied, Father, Rue Go is your eldest grandson. The emperor clutched his chest, panting, I have no interest. Get out and kneel outside. Just as the prince was about to rise, a panting eunuch rushed in. Your Highness, there's trouble. A report from the Eastern Palace states that Cui Jiao and the new arrival have clashed, and the royal grandson has been pushed into the lake. The physician fears the worst. You must go see. The prince hurried back to the Eastern Palace, only to find chaos within. Yunyang was weeping, cradling Rue Ge, who lay pale upon the bed while the physician sighed and shook his head as he administered acupuncture. The child had always been frail, and the cold lake water had exacerbated his condition. Whether he would survive was now a matter of fate. Upon inquiry, the prince learned that the two women had quarreled over jealousy, with Yunyang asserting that Rue Ge was the crown prince's legitimate heir, while Cui Jiao insisted that her unborn child was the true royal bloodline. Cui Jiao, seething with rage, retorted, You, a mere songstress, dare to contest with me. My child is the blood of both the royal family and the Cui clan, far superior to your illegitimate spawn. Who knows if Rue Ge is even legitimate? Royal blood cannot be muddled, especially given your lowly status. Why else would the Empress refuse to even meet you after 2 days in the Eastern Palace? It is simply because she does not wish to acknowledge you and your child. You should take your little bastard and leave the Eastern Palace.
With that,
she shoved Rue Ge, who stumbled and fell into the lake, and by the time he was rescued, he was barely alive. The following day, before dawn could break, a wail echoed from the Eastern Palace. My Rue Ge. Tragically, Rue Ge could not be saved. He lingered through the night, but ultimately succumbed to illness. Yunyang, clutching her child, wept inconsolably in the prince's embrace. Husband, you must avenge our child. The prince reassured her. Do not worry. I have confined her and will not let her out. Yunyang cried, but our child is dead. Merely confining her is not enough. I want her to pay with her life. The prince sighed. Do not act rashly. She carries my child. Rue Ge is gone, and I cannot allow anything to happen to the child she bears. The Moon Maiden murmured to herself, My Rouge is gone, and she still desires to bear a child. Shao Chun, if you do not avenge my offspring, I shall take matters into my own hands. Before long, news spread that Cui Jiao, confined to her quarters, suffered excruciating abdominal pain after consuming the restorative soup brought from the kitchen, leading to a tragic miscarriage. In her distress, Cui Jiao wept and wailed, inciting Shao Chun's fury, prompting him to order a thorough investigation, which revealed that the Moon Maiden had surreptitiously administered poison into the soup. Observing the furious Shao Chun, the Moon Maiden calmly remarked, What is it? Does the Crown Prince wish for my life in recompense? She has taken my child. Is it not just that a life be exchanged for a life? Shao Chun's countenance turned ashen as he collapsed to the ground, Within a fortnight, both children of the Eastern Palace had perished. Yet, before he could dwell in sorrow for long, a petition was presented during the Grand Court Assembly, accusing the Crown Prince of accepting bribes during his inspection tour in Jiangnan years prior, involved in the sale of official positions, with meticulous records revealing a sum of 500,000 taels of silver from these transactions. The evidence was irrefutable, inciting the emperor's wrath. Shao Chun, as the Crown Prince, how could you engage in such treacherous acts that undermine the very foundation of our state? You have brought me immeasurable disappointment. The Crown Prince was confined to the Eastern Palace, and after a fortnight, an edict was issued to depose him. The emperor proclaimed to the world that the Crown Prince's conduct was unbecoming, his virtue unworthy of his station. Thus, his position as heir was revoked, and he was banished to Qingzhou, forbidden to return to the capital without imperial summons. Accompanied by 2 concubines and scant belongings, the Crown Prince hastily set forth on his journey. On that very day, coincidentally, was my wedding day. His carriage brushed past my bridal sedan, and as he lifted the curtain of his carriage, he caught sight from afar of the characters Cui in the welcoming procession. He gazed bitterly at my sedan, then cast a fierce glance at Jiyu, exclaiming, "Wretched woman, had it not been for your seduction, my rightful consort would be Jiyu, and the Grand Tutor would not have turned a blind eye to my plight. It is all your doing." Jiyu sat in a corner, timidly refraining from retorting, for her life and death now rested entirely in the hands of the Crown Prince. Even as a fallen heir, he remained the emperor's son. To extinguish her life would be as effortless as crushing an ant. I listened to the words of the maidservant beside me, observing the path ahead led by Qin Mu, suspecting he had intentionally directed the deposed Crown Prince down this route. However, all of that was now in the past. The Cui family had distanced themselves from the contest for succession, and I had chosen a talented and handsome gentleman. Henceforth, living well was the only imperative. The end of the tale. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.